Hello and welcome to another webinar from the Digital Culture Network. Today it's with me, James. I'm one of the 9 tech champions of the Digital Culture Network. If you've not been to any of our webinars before, this is the kind of stuff we do. So this one is about how to track marketing campaign performance. And what it's not about is about building a campaign from scratch and all the different costs and spends and all that kind of stuff. This is all about the tracking element of it. And the importance of that is that you can prove the stuff you're doing is actually successful. So I'm going to go through lots of different bits over the next 45 minutes, 50 minutes, and then we're going to have questions at the end. So if you're watching this live, because we're going to record this at the same time, and you can watch this video back at any time. But if you're watching it live with us right now, there is a chat facility. So in that chat facility, we've got Mark, who's one of our other tech champions, and he's managing the chat in there. So if you ask any questions about anything I'm talking about as we go through, Mark's going to collate any that he doesn't answer himself or don't get answered in the content that we go through. And then at the end of the session, I'm going to look at the document of collated questions, and we're going to work through them. So we're going to answer some of those questions together. It might be that the questions you've asked are not suitable for this session because this is very much a beginner's session to marketing campaign tracking. There are some questions and some concepts that are way more advanced than what we're going to cover in this session, but it will help the content that we create after this and further webinars. So do ask questions, even if we don't answer them, we'll probably answer them in other sessions or other pieces of content. Now, when you signed up, there was a question about what you wanted to learn about marketing campaign tracking, the kind of questions you had. So thank you for answering those. Some people were just like, I'm starting from scratch. I have no idea about any of this. That's fine. That's what this session's all about. There's others who are asking really in-depth questions about the certain things that you can and can't do. Excellent. We might be able to, it might be covered in this session. Again, it might be a further session, but you can get in touch with us at the Digital Culture Network by emailing us, and Mark will post the email address and our website address in the chat. So it's digitalnetwork@artscouncil.org.uk. Drop us an email, and we could potentially offer you support if you're eligible for it for free. If not, we'll signpost you to the right resources, or we'll work something else out. So through this webinar, what I'm going to do is use 3 different organizations as examples. Now, these are made up examples, but some of their common objectives that the organizations that we speak to as tech champions that we come across. Go to the next slide, sorry. The first of those is a dance organization. And this dance organization, when they've thought about their digital strategy and the objectives that they want to achieve as an organization, they want to reach more people over the age of 55. So that's quite a straightforward objective. It's a certain demographic. They want to reach more people in that age range. The next is an orchestra, and they want to increase the subscribers to their email database. They know that once they get people signed up to their database, that they can start to drip feed content over time, and it's a much deeper engagement with their organization. So they want to capture capture more and more email addresses, so they can have a long-standing dialogue with their audiences. When you speak to Peggy, who's our tech champion for email marketing, she can really get in depth into the importance of email marketing and why it still is such an important channel for digital marketing in this day and age. And the last one is a small museum. And what they have is resource packs on their website that they want to share with schools. So they want to track, are schools using those resource packs? Are they downloading them? Are they sending emails to request them? And those are the 3 organizations and the objectives that they are looking for. And I'll run through those as examples as we go through. Now, they're only one objective for each of those organizations. Most organizations are going to have multiple objectives. So it's not just this one. We have lots and lots and lots. Okay. So the first question is, why should I track marketing campaigns? And that's what we're going to talk about today. And there are several reasons, and here are a few of the reasons why. One is to prove what is working. So a marketing campaign is very different from your day-to-day activity that you're doing on your, say, social channels or the stuff that you're pushing out anyway. A specific campaign that you want to run should have specific objectives, and it should be over a certain time range, that time period as well. So if that's the case, and we're going to talk about benchmarking and all those kind of things as we go through this webinar, but we need to prove what is working. And that's how tracking campaigns can help that. So the campaign you're running, is what we're trying to achieve actually happening? It can also focus your time and resources. So instead of just throwing money and resource into the wind, we can actually prove that some of the stuff we're doing is actually contributing to what we're trying to objectively achieve. Next is for live testing and adjustment. So organizations that are doing any campaigns, digital marketing campaigns, they can tweak and test as they go along. Usually campaigns are over a long period of time, more than a few days. So we're talking weeks, maybe months. You might even have a year-long campaign if it's a huge thing. As you go along, you can start to see, are things that we're doing working to get to where we want to? Or if not, we can start to tweak things. Is it the channels we're using? Is it the messaging that we're using? Or is it a different approach that we should have completely? And lastly, it can inform the future activity. So if you can prove that the stuff that you've done and all that effort you put in is actually contributed to X amount of new things, new subscribers to your newsletter, or more of that demographic interacting with you as an organization, you can show that that's worked. So you can replicate that in another campaign that you're going to run. Or you can just take learnings from it and say, that didn't work, so we're going to try something completely different this time. So when I talk about campaign structure, usually, and I've touched on that before, and we're going to look at SMART objectives later on. But first, you need an objective. What is the point of the campaign? Secondly, you need a benchmark. So as standard, if we do nothing, what happens anyway? How many newsletter subscribers do we get on a monthly basis without us doing any specific campaigns? How many people normally come to our website that are over the age of 55 or interact with our social media channels? The tactics are the things you're actually doing. So how are you going to achieve that? So you've got an objective and you know what your benchmark is. The tactics is all about the different bits of activity that you're going to do. So what are you going to do? You're going to either send an email campaign, you're going to put adverts out on a certain channel, or you're going to work on referral links back to your website. So there's different types of marketing tactics that are available to you to actually achieve that objective. Next is the targets. So we've got our benchmark, we've got a target for realistically what we want to achieve for that. And that's the kind of stuff that you take back to senior management. Is like, are we hitting the target? So we're running a campaign over 3 months on a weekly basis. Are we actually looking at the trend of what's happening? Are we actually going to hit that target that we want to get to? And that can, if it's a brand new campaign when you've never done anything before, the targets can be quite difficult to, it's more like plucking a figure out of the air. But using that the information you've learned from other campaigns, you can start to get an understanding of what an expected target could be. And lastly, it's evaluation. Now, digital marketing and tracking digital marketing campaigns is really beneficial for the evaluation element of it, because you can do it on an ongoing basis. So you can check on a weekly basis, are we on track to get to that target that we're trying to reach? And then at the end of the campaign, you can evaluate which channels worked well for us, what was the activity, what was the spend, and then what was the outcome of it. And then you can go into more advanced level of reviewing a campaign by looking at like lifetime value of a customer. So you've got somebody in, what's the lifetime value of that person against the spend that we've made in this campaign, and then that's how you calculate that return on investment of you're putting in here. So as I go through this, there's a few quotes that I've plucked out. Now, some of these I've just made up myself, such as this one, but others come from, they've been around on the digital marketing circuit for quite a while. But this one is what I wrote the other day, which is campaigns should have specific objectives to achieve in a defined time frame. So that's what a campaign should look like. So it's not woolly, it's very specific. It's specific objectives in a specific time frame. And as I said, I'll mention SMART objectives and what they mean later on as we go on. Before we look at the different elements of it, I wanted to just highlight some of the challenges that we get when it comes to digital marketing, and you need to be aware of those because it doesn't give you the full picture, and there's reasons why. So here are some of the challenges. Now there's others as well, but these are some of the main ones. Now, the first one is that when it comes to digital and technology and things like that, there's in our current the current position that we're in now, there's an increased awareness and an expectation from your audience when it comes to privacy standards. So we're talking about GDPR, cookie laws, so cookie banners and things like that. Now, depending on what you've implemented, does have an effect on the amount of tracking and data that's available to you when you're running your campaigns. As an example, on the Digital Culture Network website, we have adhered to the Information Commissioner's Office definition of cookie banners to the letter, which means that you have to explicitly accept that banner before any tracking of any type gets tracked against that user. So that means that we want to track things like Google Analytics and things like that. Only people that have clicked accept will allow us to actually see that. So we're losing data on a huge chunk of our audience, rightly so, when it comes to privacy, that's fine. But most organizations haven't gone to that level of holding things back in that way. And that is a technical decision and a strategic one to adhere to the policies that are out there. You don't have to. It's your choice as an organization. The secondly is the closed wall social media activity. So a lot of the things that we want to track for a campaign, there's different metrics that are aligned to different stages of your audience and their journey that they're going on with you. So we have to go into different platforms to pull out data about them. Because somebody who uses Facebook, for an example, some people think Facebook is the internet. So they spend all their time on Facebook, they don't go anywhere else. So it's all closed within that its own little sphere. So we need to dive into that, the data we get from there. We need to look at it from other sources as well to get a bigger picture. And like Instagram, if you've seen a post on Instagram that says, click our link in our bio. So the link isn't available in an organic post within the actual copy of a post on Instagram. You have to then go to the bio to then click off. So there's ways to track that. You can do it, but it's just the user journey is a bit more difficult. Unless you're doing paid ads, then the actual buttons are in there. So that's a different thing. Next is data quality and limitations. Over the last 18 months, we've worked with quite a few organizations and looked at their Google Analytics, the data they're tracking, and things like that. And nearly all of them, the data's not been configured in the right way in context to their organization. So the quality of data, you need to have confidence in it. When you go back to senior management and you want to talk about, oh, we've reached X amount of people and done this and now the others, you need to have confidence in the data that you're presenting. So going through an audit process to make sure it is all up to scratch is really important. One organization I worked with actually had double counted figures. So they thought the last year they were getting twice as many visitors as they've ever had to their website. And what it was just being double counted. So all their users to their website were double counted. So it was inflating all their figures and not actually true. So that's the process of going through an audit to make sure your data is correct and the quality of it is really important. And then the limitations of data as well. So some platforms you'll go into, say like Instagram Insights will give you the last 7 days. Some Google Search Console data will give you 90 days, but then it cuts off. So unless you're extracting that data on an ongoing basis, you're going to miss out on a lot of that data. So those kind of processes are important to have in place if those are the metrics that are important to you. Next is inherent bias and interpretation. So I've just got a swig. In your organization, I've been in organizations before. Some people in the organization know the customers. We know them. There's no point doing any marketing activity in this way or that way because we know that they only do that. That's an inherent bias, and there's many other versions of that. If you type it into Google, it'll give you lots of examples of what that would look like. But be aware of that when you're approaching any campaigns. And then the other element is interpretation. When you look at data, what is it actually telling you versus what do you want it to tell you? You should go to any source of data with a question instead of with an assumption already. And that's part of the process of analysis when it comes to data analysis and campaign performance. And lastly on here is digital exclusion. We're talking about digital marketing campaigns. There are ways to track offline campaigns as well that link through to digital. But if your audience that you're trying to reach has limited access to technology such as internet-enabled phones or patchy connections, stuff like that, or they can't access certain things, it really limits the scope of what you want to track in that way. So digital exclusion is a huge issue and something that we talk to organizations about all the time, and we've just had a discussion about it this morning actually. And it is something that needs to be addressed and be aware of when you're approaching campaigns, is that the audience that you're trying to reach might not even have any access to the digital stuff that you're trying to track. So the two things to accept as we approach all these things is that, one, there's no single source of truth. Now, I know people coming to this webinar would love me to go, here's the silver bullet and here's the dashboard, and that's going to tell you everything that you want and you don't have to do anything, it's all automated. You can get there, but it takes a lot of work. And every organization has different objectives. Every marketing campaign has different objectives. So to have say a dashboard that can achieve all those things is very, very difficult. So work with us and work collaboratively to get there, and we'll work together, and I know a lot of the common objectives that most marketing campaigns are trying to achieve. So have a chat with me. After this we can have one-to-one call and we'll discuss those things for your organization and what would be useful for you. And number two, you will never know the full picture. We talked about digital exclusion there, the privacy elements of behind cookie walls, stuff like that. You're not going to get the full picture. So when it comes to campaign tracking, it's a mix of metrics, so the stuff that we're trying to track, the benchmark of what you already know, and then informed assumptions. So that's another one of James's quotes that was stuck in there for you. So when I say informed assumptions, is that the data that you have, if you're aware of all the limitations of certain elements of it, you can add things up. So just as a quick example of that, we're using a privacy first analytics tracking software on the website, which means it doesn't set any cookies, doesn't have any identifying features about a user, and it's tracking that alongside Google Analytics. So we've got Google Analytics running, which is hidden behind an accept banner. Only people that accept that will fire Google Analytics script. And then the other one is tracking all users. Well, some of the more of the users anyway. And what we can do is start to work out a calculation of, oh, we're actually seeing this amount of visitors come to the website. This amount of them are actually accepting the cookie. So then we can start to apply an expected what the actual number, the true value of it is. But we'll never know the actual, unless we watch every person over their shoulder coming to our website, we'll never know the full picture. So you just you need to have that element of applied assumptions as well. First question we dive into this element is, what are metrics? Add it to the chat. I can't see it, but maybe Mark will come up with some responses and we can have a look at them later on. Anybody know? So a metric, I'm going to give it away now. A metric is a measurement, and that's all it is. But there are different types. There are different types of metrics, and for your campaigns, you want to look at different ones. Now, you might see these words bandied around a bit: quantitative and qualitative. And I said them right. Oh, I'm so happy with myself. Now, quantitative data is usually like structured collection. So it's numbers we're talking about, and it's an objective measurement. So it's usually used for numbers and statistics, and then we collect it as I say, in a structured way, and it's all about testing. So is the number going up or down, those kind of things. Now, qualitative is a subjective metric and measurement, sorry. And that's usually semi-structured, so it could be text fields that people fill in, or it could be, so descriptions, survey responses, that kind of stuff. So it's more from the heart and what people's feelings are, compared to quantitative, which is about numbers. So depending on what your objectives are for you to achieve, you'll need to look at different metrics which sit in these different categories. Where can I find this data? I hear you ask. Depending on the objective of your campaign, you need to look in different places. And I'm going to show you some of the places where you can find data, and it's not an exhaustive list. There's loads and loads of more. And that's what I want you to take away from this, is that the campaigns that you're running only need to look at certain metrics on certain platforms to see the success of it. You don't need to collect all the data. So let's go into some of the different providers, and we'll go from there. So Twitter, anybody who's got a Twitter account has access to this kind of data. Now, this is when I ran the Google Analytics webinar for absolute beginners. And I shared a post on there. We had a video on it. So it was me explaining that I've got this video coming up, this webinar coming up. And what Twitter can give me is the impressions. So how many times that tweet was served in front of somebody. So when it appeared in their feed. The media views, so when someone actually watched the video. And then engagement, so when people pressed the like button, they shared it, they retweeted it, or looked at my profile, things like that, or replied. So all those metrics are there, so we can start to see, did people look at it? What's the reach? Are more people seeing it than normal? Those kind of things. When we go to Instagram, we can get more granular data about the demographics, because Instagram is now owned by Facebook. So their analytics and all the kind of the things that link those two together are becoming closer and closer and closer as time goes on. So we're seeing a lot of crossover. First, it was just the ads that we could manage through Facebook and then push to Instagram, but now we're seeing all the demographic data come together as well. So they're trying to pull all this together. Whether you like that or not, it's a question. But in Instagram, the organic insights that you can see the demographic of your audience, so who are interacting with you, like the age ranges, the genders. Now, there's a very this archaic gender that we see in these platforms. So it's usually male or female. It doesn't cover the others. So that's something to be aware of as well. But in here you can see, what days people are interacting with your stuff the most, and if you're running a campaign and it's going to be, and you're doing organic posts, so stuff that you're just posting out, you're not paying for anything, there's no adverts here, you can see the interactions of that. And if you look through the Instagram insights and go through all the different options and stuff, it does give you a breakdown of the different things that they're tracking. So in this example, on the right hand side, it tells us about the account activity, so the profile visits, the website taps, and then the email button taps, all that stuff. So it has a breakdown of the different things that a user could do, and again, link through to your objectives. Some of those might be useful for you. When we go on to Facebook, as I said, the Instagram and Facebook are now the same. Well, owned by Facebook, so as I said, there's a lot of crossover now, but it's the same level of data. So you're getting stuff about maybe your organizational page, how people are interacting with the posts that you put out, and then the demographic information about them as well, about your audience. When we look at Facebook ads, if you're going to run any ads on Facebook, if over the course of the campaign that you're running, you'll get access to data about the ads that have ran. So how many times it was served in front of a person, the frequency. So in this example, it's 2.81 times. So every person saw it on average nearly 3 times, and then it gives you the cost per result. So in this example, the intention of these ads was to send people to a landing page. And when you're setting up ads on Facebook, it will give you the options of what is the objectives you're trying to achieve for these ads, and it will guide you through that process. So this one, sending people to a landing page, and the cost for every person that did that, so the cost per result is 52p. So it cost 52p for someone, for every person they wanted that clicked it and then went through to the landing page. There's also loads and loads of data in any ticketing or e-commerce platform. Now, we work with loads of organizations that have ticketing systems such as TicketSolve and Spectrix and Tessitura and things like that. And all their systems are able to track information against the customer. So usually they're integrated with an email platform as well, which means they can see that they've sent emails to a certain customer, and then they've bought something or made donations, and they can link it all together. And that's the power of a customer relationship management software, which most ticketing systems are now, to bring that full picture about an audience. So a lot of people look at that, and when they're running campaigns, they're looking at the data within there. But what we're going to look at later on is how Google Analytics and using UTM parameters can actually give you a fuller picture about the journeys that people go on, and the importance of the different channels that people go through when interacting with you as an organization. And yeah, speak of the devil, Google Analytics. We use this extensively with the different organizations that we speak to. And please, if you've not watched them and you're interested in this, watch the webinars that I ran early this year on the introduction to Google Analytics, how to audit your analytics account to make sure the data is correct. And then the third one, which goes in depth into Google Tag Manager and the benefits of using that. Because when you've got those things together, and you're say if your campaign is to drive people to your website, having these things set up so you're tracking all the data and all the information about what's actually happening is so useful to understand the user journeys that people go on when they're interacting with you. And then, are they doing the thing that you want them to do? Whether it doesn't have to be monetary. It could be, as we said with the examples, subscribing to a newsletter or watching videos. You know, that could be what your objective is for your organization. And then we have email campaign providers. So you've heard of things like MailChimp and .mailer. They all have similar similar functionality about setting up campaigns, doing automated campaigns, all this kind of stuff. And you'll see open rates, click-through rates, all that data's in there. And again, if those are the objectives of your campaign, they might be ones that you need to look at in the email provider. So pulling the data from there as well. And lastly with this is an example of qualitative data, I got it right, using surveys. So there's different survey providers out there. I'm just going to show you this example from Hotjar. And you could have a little pop-up on your website saying, did you find what you were looking for? Or, what did you struggle with today? Or, how did you find this performance? Because it might be a description of something. And that's another way of capturing information and actual feedback from your users. That's not just numbers. It's actually a bit more interesting. And if you're feeding that back and say, I had a fantastic time and this was brilliant, that's great to take back to senior management for any campaign you've run. But they're all indicators of success. But the indicator of success is all down to the objectives that you set at the beginning of a campaign. What do you want to achieve? What's the point of you doing anything? So here's my favorite GIF of all time. This guy. What metrics should I look at? There's so many. What I recommend you doing, instead of just going off into all these platforms and looking at all the stats, is take a step back. There's different, as I keep saying, there's different metrics for different objectives. Take a step back. Go offline and have a think about all the different systems that you have access to and are probably using. So what is your website built on? What do you have? If you have a ticketing system, what is that? What kind of data does that collect? What social media channels are you using and effectively? And then you can look at the different campaigns that you might want to run and what you're trying to objectively achieve, and what any of those systems that you already have, do they have the data that you're looking for? Now we've done this with organizations, back when we could meet them face to face, it was a lot easier. But sticking out some post-it notes and writing all these things down really helps bring it all out. So instead of being swamped in data, you can go, right, we've got this, and this. Let's just focus on these few metrics or these few platforms that are going to give us the data we're looking for. Which leads us to another quote, which is not by me. It's not James's quote, it's somebody else's. And it's been around for ages, this one. But there's different ways of wording it, but it's essentially this. Don't value what you measure. So you've got all these systems collecting all this data. Oh, we've got all the data. There's no value in that. Don't value what you measure. Measure what you value. So keep going back to it. What are the objectives for your organization? Firstly, why does your organization exist? That's a good place to start if you don't have any. Then move down. What are the goals that are going to allow you to continue to have the vision for your organization? And it could be financial targets that you want to get to, or, as we said, reaching those different demographics. Those things could be funding requirements that you're trying to achieve. So, go there. If we're trying to achieve this, so, for example, it could be like the over 55s. How are we going to do it? So the metrics are the ones that they're the valuable metrics that you need to be looking at and measure them, because that's what you value as an organization. You value the proof that that's happening against what is really useful for you. And that links back to what I said at the beginning. Focus your time and resources. Don't waste your time looking at metrics that don't make any sense. So in this section, into this part, what not to measure? Things you cannot change. There's no point doing a campaign if you can't change anything, if it has no bearing on what it is. So there's no point measuring it, is there? And secondly, is vanity metrics. Now I'm specifically going to talk about, and I'm going to ask if anybody's done this. Has anybody got any vanity metrics that they want to chuck in the chat? We'll have a look at them later. But has anybody gone to a board meeting, senior management meeting, and gone, ooh, the site-wide bounce rate has gone down 10%. Fantastic. What does that mean? Now, it's a useless metric, because if you're not looking at a bounce rate in context to a certain piece of content, a site-wide bounce rate for the whole website is useless information, and there's no point focusing on that. Is it gone up or down? Oh no, it's gone down 5% this month. Doesn't matter. Bounce rates are all aligned to the content that the page is on that we're looking at. So for an example, the higher the bounce rate, so I want a really high bounce rate for a page which is telling the user how to get to your organization. So, directions, a map. If someone comes to that page, reads the page, it's given everything they're looking for, and they leave the website, perfect. We've served what they needed to do. If it's a different type of content where they need to go through different pages and stuff like that, we want a lower bounce rate. So it's looking at bounce rates in context. So again, that's down to, as I was saying earlier, the interpretation of data. But vanity metrics are a scourge across the whole of this kind of stuff when it comes to campaign planning and evaluation. So now I'm going to go back to our organizations that we mentioned at the beginning. Dance organization, they want to increase their audience demographic of ages over 55. Now, the tactics that we were talking about, so we're not going to cover tactics and how to work those out and all that kind of stuff in this webinar, because this is about tracking. But the tactics element, and it's something we'll definitely cover in a future webinar, and the resources we provide. But in this example, this organization want to increase the amount of over 55s coming to their website or engaging with their social media channels. So what they're using is Facebook Pixel. Now, Facebook Pixel is a piece of code that you can put on your website. Now, another element of tracking. And what that will do is learn about the people coming to your website. So it links the people who come to your website through to their Facebook profile and then gives you the insights in Facebook Insights. So that means you can start to get an understanding of your audience. And then you can do things like create a lookalike audience. So what I mean by that is that there might be over 55s coming to your website already. So by using a Facebook pixel, you can go, right, we know that these people are the demographic we want to hit. When you go into Facebook ads, you can then create a lookalike audience. So one that looks like the people that have come to your website, but have never heard of you as an organization. So it's people you would never normally reach ever. So we're going to serve adverts to them. So then, perfect. So that's a great tactic, one of a great digital marketing tactic to increase those people coming to your channels. For the evaluation element of it, there's two places that we need to look. In Facebook Insights, so to learn about the demographic, is it changing over time? And then the demographic reports in Google Analytics as well. So people coming to your website, is it increasing? The reason why we need to look in two places is that Facebook Insights will give you data about people interacting with the channel, the Facebook pages and stuff you've got on there. But any campaign you run doesn't immediately happen. So you might be running a campaign for 3 months, but people that have seen your adverts and stuff might not return to you until a few months after that. It could be days, weeks, months after that. So it's a long tail approach to understanding a marketing campaign that you're running. So that's why you need to look at different sources, is that if the increase is happening, and we'll talk about benchmarks in a bit, if the increase is happening, then we need to look in different sources to get that and make sure we understand the impact of what we're doing. For the orchestra, they wanted to increase their subscribers to an email database. So how are they doing that? Their tactic is driving traffic to their website, and they're doing that using adverts on search channels. So Google, Bing, Yahoo, if you ever use that still, and then social ads, so on Facebook and Twitter and things like that. How are they proving that it's been successful? The evaluation element of it, they're looking at the total number of MailChimp subscribers, and they're looking at the conversion rate from people coming to the website and signing up on Google Analytics. For the small museum, they are looking for schools downloading their resource packs. So their activity, their tactic is that they've spent time approaching different websites to link through to theirs, and they've sent an email campaign using the software they already have. So for this, how do we track a download of something on a website? We'll use Google Analytics and the file download reports in that. So focusing the objectives that you want to achieve and then looking for the right place of where to find that metric is really important. They'll also look at people getting in touch with them on that page or through the contact form about schools and stuff, because they might have other questions as well. So there's, again, two places that they might want to track as an objective. Benchmarking and smart objectives. Who's heard of smart objectives? They're smart. Somebody made it up ages ago. They've been around. Oh, hang on, I know this. It's been around since the 1980s. So you should have heard about it before now. Oh, what was it? Anyway, I can't remember what it was. I can't remember the specific date. It's 1980s anyway. 1985, something like that. Anyway, we were saying earlier about benchmarking, and I want to talk about a bit more about that. And I want to talk about smart objectives. Now, smart objectives is a whole other discussion and probably a whole other webinar for when you are creating a campaign and you're defining the objectives against your organizational goals. So what we're going to do is do a webinar specifically on that, and we're going to show examples of what that looks like in practice, step by step. But the benchmarking element of what we're talking about here is that for you to prove the success of a campaign that you're running, you need to know on an average month or week how many times the thing that you're trying to get people to do for the purpose of the campaign happens anyway. So that's your benchmark. So as an example, we want more people to come to our website. That's a really generic objective. On average, we get 2,000 people, say. What we want to do is increase that. So what we need to look at for the success of a campaign is the increase. So we need to minus what happens anyway without us doing anything and just look at the increase, because that's going to show that what we're doing is actually effective. Now, what smart objectives do is break down when you're building a campaign the different things that you need to consider. So this is what it means. The S is for specific. I was about to say smart then. The S is for specific. And what I mean by that is that you need to be really granular. It can't just be, we want to increase the people to our website by 50%. Sorry, let me just take a step back. It can't just be, we want to increase people to the website. That's too generic. It needs to be specific, which is by 50%, okay? It needs to be measurable. So looking at all those different platforms that we've got, all the different ways that you could track information about your users, is it being tracked already? Is it easy to manage? There's no point setting up something that's really hard to find information and data on, because it's going to waste your time now and when you're trying to evaluate it as well. Third is the A for achievable. So setting a goal from like say me, I want to earn £1 million over the next year. It's not going to happen, is it? Not in the situation we're rolling at the moment. So it's not really achievable for me. So based on the knowledge you know about your organization, the kind of activity that's already going on, is it what you're trying to achieve and the targets you're setting, is it achievable? And then the R is for relevant. So why should this be the focus right now? So what you're trying to achieve, there's so many things that you could potentially run a campaign on. Is this what you should be focusing on at this point in time? It might be nice, but is it the right thing? Is it relevant? And T is the most important one because it's time bound. And if you're not running a campaign for a certain amount of time, it could go on forever. It could be too short for, like, you could just be running it. You might just be boosting a post on Facebook, and by doing that, it might increase your reach, but it's not really a campaign. So by having a specific time frame that you're going to evaluate and keep checking on is really important. So in the article that we'll send you after this, we're going to put links to this video. You'll be able to watch this again, the slides, so you can go through them again, and also loads of different articles that are going to follow on. So one of them will be around smart objectives, so you can go into more in depth about that, because if you can start doing it and put it into practice in your organization, it is really worthwhile. Next, we're going to apply the benchmarking. So our dance organization wants to increase the demographic by 55 over 55s. On average, they've looked, this is their benchmark. On average, they're seeing 400 visits from that demographic to the website. So they're looking at the audience reports in Google Analytics, and they're seeing that 400 visits a month, on average, we get anyway. So their campaign, so the specific and achievable element of what their smart objective is they want to increase the number by 50% over the next 3 months. So that's the campaign that they're running. So they calculate it by going, it's 400 a month anyway, I'm going to times it by 0.5, which is 50%, and then times it by 3 by the months. So that gives them 600. So the campaign, the target for that campaign is 600 additional visits of new users in that demographic over that period. Now, there's no point starting a campaign and then 3 months later coming at the other end and going, oh, did we hit 600? Because you might have done, you might have exceeded it, or it might be a lot lower. You need to evaluate it on an ongoing basis. So most campaigns, and I ran this session to the Tech Champions and we talked about it. And Peggy, who's our Tech Champion for email marketing, came up with this point, and it's a really valid point, that a campaign that you run will not instantly have loads of people doing the thing you want them to do straight away. There's usually a curve upwards. So at the beginning of a campaign, it'll be a lot lower, but then it starts to build up, especially if you're doing multi-channel marketing, which we'll talk about in a minute. So at the beginning, you need to see if you're on track to hit that target. So if it's a 3-month campaign, you need to be doing a weekly analysis of what kind of numbers are we getting, and is it increasing over time, and what's the projected increase? So how is that going up to reach that target of 600? If it's really low all the way along and it's just, you know, not doing much, then you need to do something else, put some more effort into it, more spend, or different channels and stuff like that to see the impact. And that's the benefit of doing tracking in this way. The orchestra, they want to increase their subscribers. Now, Peggy mentioned that 30 people a month is not very many. So she said, set your targets higher, which is fair enough. This is one subscriber a day. Their benchmark on average is 30 people a month, and they want to increase it by 100% over the next 6 months. So 30 a month times by 1, which is 100%. So it's 30 times by 6, so 180. That's their target they're trying to reach. So they're looking for an additional 180 additional subscribers in total. The small museum, they are 50 downloads a month on average. They want to increase it by 75%. So again, we can't do fractions when it comes to these kind of things. So I'm going to round it up. So their target is 113 additional downloads in total. Another one of James's quotes I've stuck in here is conversions should be easy to define, easy to measure, and significantly beneficial. So that links back to the SMART objectives, what I was talking about, the specific nature of it, and needs to be beneficial to you. There's no point tracking stuff. There's no point running a campaign about something that's completely useless. There's no point tracking a campaign, again, which is just not going to give you much insight. So significantly beneficial to your organization. The next question is, so we're going back into the numbers again. I apologize for people who hate the mathematics, but how do I calculate cost per conversion? Now, I mentioned in the description of this webinar, we mentioned return on investment, which is a whole bigger ball game. And I think for this level of webinar, when we're talking about the beginners and introduction to this kind of stuff, we're not going to go into that much detail, and we're not going to cover actual calculating return on investment because it is more complex. And as an example, is that if you are spending a certain amount of money on ads and resource for a campaign, and it's converting to a certain amount, we see people coming in and signing up and doing what you want them to do. It might be that you already know that if someone signs up to your newsletter, that because of the information that you get from your ticketing system or platforms that you're using, you know that over a lifetime value of a customer, they would spend on average, I don't know, £500, say, over the length of a normal customer. They spend £500 with me. So that's how you calculate the return on investment, which is calculating all those potential future spends of different customers and then against the campaign that you're running. So it's a far complex story, and it's something I think, again, we'll cover in future webinars and look into that, because capturing data and all those things, what does it contribute to in the long term? And that's where your return on investment is. But for this part, we're going to talk about cost per conversion. So it's the campaigns we're running, how much it costs to convert a person from the different things that we're looking at for the objectives. So a person that isn't subscribed, converting them to someone who is subscribed, someone who doesn't know about us to somebody who does know about us. So that's the conversion we're talking about when we use that as a term. We're converting them from one status to a different one in our eyes as an organization. So for calculating spend, the cost of conversion, we just divide the spend by the conversions, minusing the benchmark. So in this example, we spent £500 on a campaign, 25 additional people signed up to that was the objective for whatever this campaign was. So then we just divide it by it. So £500 divided by 25 equals £20. So to convert those people, and this is a really high cost per conversion, and it's something that you'll see if you ever look into cost per conversion for different sectors, such as insurance or high-end products. They don't mind having a high cost per conversion because the amount they make from these customers is huge. It's very different for us in the arts and culture sector. So I wouldn't expect you to be spending £20 per conversion unless they were spending lots and lots of money with you in the long term. So I was going to go into those organizations again. So our dance organization wants to increase their audience demographic of the ages 55 plus. They've spent £200 on Facebook ads, specifically targeting those people using the lookalike audiences we discussed earlier on. The result of that was 600 site visits. So the cost per new visitor to the site or engaging with their platform is 33p. So you can calculate on a cost by cost basis how much it's cost to get those people to. For the orchestra, they've spent £100. They've done a bit of multi-channel marketing here. £100 on Facebook ads, £100 on Google ads, and they've had 180 additional subscribers. So they've reached their target, and it costs them £1.11 for every person that then subscribed. And then the small museums, they didn't spend any money because what they did is use staff time. So the staff time was spent emailing other websites and sending them information that should link back to their website, which had the resources on. And they sent out an email campaign. And as an example, the email campaign didn't cost anything because it was under the threshold, say, of MailChimp's users. So there was no actual cost, it was just staff time. So you could calculate that if that's what you wanted. You don't have to go this granular with anything you're doing, but it might be useful to go, you know, is it worthwhile me spending that time doing that thing? You can use this kind of stuff to then say, oh yeah, actually it was worthwhile because, you know, we now have, it took 6 hours, you know, so a big chunk of a day. But we've now got 113 subscribers, resource packs, sorry. I've miswrote that part of it. The result was 113 additional people downloading the resources. Next, multi-channel marketing. Wow. Here's a quote. This was from 2013. On average, it takes 14 dates, sorry, not days, bloody hell, that'd be quick, before a couple says, I love you. Now, this was from some weird survey in 2013. I don't know if this is accurate. I've just put it there to pique your interest. Because the reason I'm saying this, you might be asking, why is he talking about this? Is that anything you're doing with a campaign or just general as an organization, your customer has multiple interaction points with you and the stuff that you're doing. They will not learn about you, come to your website, sign up to your newsletter, buy a ticket and make a donation, all those things, and watch videos. They're not going to do them all at the same time. They'll do it over several points. And that's where we talk about assisted conversions and we talk about multi-channel marketing. Because a lot of the tracking that goes on in these platforms and things like that we look at, they look at the last thing that happened to convert to what you wanted to do. So when we look at stats, it might be people downloaded the thing, but they came from Facebook. Oh, great. So we should put more effort into Facebook. No, you need to look at the whole campaign because you also did organic stuff on Twitter. You did it through different channels and all this and over. And what I equate it to is a football match. A striker will score the goal, so the objective you're trying to achieve, but there was a whole team of people that led up to that. So all those different channels that people contributed to all making little contributions, and then the striker scored a goal. Brilliant! The striker gets all the glory, but there was a whole team behind it, and that's how you have to think about the campaigns you're running, and why multi-channel marketing is something that you need to be aware of. Just going to quickly go into what some of the channels are, if you don't know. And here's a list, and there's loads of stuff online about this kind of stuff, but you will use them as a user anyway. So we've got social media, so like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, those things. There's two parts of it. There's the organic stuff that you put out, so the posts that you put on as an organization, but there's also the paid elements as well. So posts that you're specifically promoting, or ads that you're running for different objectives you want to achieve. The same goes for search. Now, if you're interested in the search element of stuff, we've got Saeed, who's our search engine optimization tech champion, so you can have a chat with him. Similar thing. You've got organic listings. We talk about search engine optimization, of getting you up the rankings for certain keywords, so you appear in search. But you can jump ahead of that by buying ads. So when you look at Google, the top 3 or more now results are usually adverts for certain things. So there's ways that you can use that and tailor the messaging for the objective that you want to achieve. There's also things like email, referrals, and digital advertising, so like display adverts and stuff that you see on other websites, things like that. And then there's press and offline media as well. Loads of channels, and there are others as well. So this is just a quick list of them, just to get you in the mood. This is a screen cap from Google Analytics. And what you're able to see here, and now it's, again, as we said, some of this stuff is flawed because Google Analytics sets cookies against a certain person's user device and browser that they're using. If I was to look at something on my phone and then look at it on my computer, I'd be seen as different users. So there's a bit of mismatch there. They are working on trying to bring this data together. But what you can see in analytics, once you've set objectives, is that you can see that the user journeys people go on are varied. So some people will search for you on Google because they know of you as an organization. And then the next time, another session, it might be a few days later, they'll come direct to your website because they've already got it saved in their browser, or they've saved the link somewhere else. So there's different routes people take, and the data that you can collect on a campaign, you can start to analyze that and which were the most successful to inform the stuff that you're doing now, but also the stuff in the future. I'm now going to talk about UTM parameters. So who knows what UTM stands for? I'm going to leave that for the chat, and we'll look at that. I want to look at that later on, see if anybody gets it right, and Mark can pick a winner if there is one. It was Peggy who got it right yesterday. Mark didn't know. So what UTM parameters are, it's a method. Now, it's one method that you can use to track campaigns across multiple tools. We were talking earlier on about the siloed elements of certain stats within certain platforms. So Facebook has some stats, Twitter has some stats, and other channels do, so like email marketing, stuff like that. By utilizing UTM parameters, what we can do, if we're sending people, if the objective of that campaign is to send them to a certain location that you have control over, such as a website, you can get a better understanding of the effectiveness of your campaign if their objectives are to send them somewhere. So if you're sending people to a landing page, UTM parameters are brilliant. So in this example, for an organization that's running a certain show, maybe, that they're utilizing multiple channels, that are sending traffic, their campaign is using multi-channel marketing. All this traffic is going through to the website. What UTM parameters can do is identify where that source was from, and was it the activity that you did? So you can prove that the activity that you're doing and all the effort that you're putting in is contributing to the objective that you want to achieve. Now, again, you can use these for any objective that you want to achieve. It doesn't have to be a monetary one. It doesn't have to be ticket sales. It doesn't have to be anything to do with making money. It could be other things that you have objectives. So it could be signing up to a newsletter, things like that. For UTM parameters, they're also known as URL parameters, campaign parameters, campaign tracking parameters. Now, again, in the link that we send you after this, it will probably be Monday when we send it, so hold off till then if you can. There's an article by Alex Webb, and she's a digital marketing specialist, and she's created an article all about UTM parameters, and it breaks it down and has far more detail than what I can explain to you in this webinar. But what she's got in there are two things. One is a link to the Google's URL builder. So the stuff that we're going to talk about in a minute, you can build this out by using a form, and it generates the link for you at the end. But the other thing that she's got on there is a spreadsheet, so an automated spreadsheet that you put in the different parameters, and it chucks it out at the end. And the benefit of that is that you can keep a tally of a record of all the different URLs that you've created. So when it comes to UTM parameters, there's 4 elements. There are 2 other elements that you might want to use, but we're going to talk about the main 4. One is the URL itself. So that's where you're sending somebody. So you need to send it to something that you have control over, such as, like I was saying, an app. We've got Google Analytics, our own Google Analytics installed on our Eventbrite page, so we can send people straight to Eventbrite, which is what we did for for what you booked on today. And then at the end of the URL is a question mark, and then lots of squiggly stuff, extra stuff. And what that is the campaign source. So it's the website that the link was posted on, so where you shared it. It could be an ad, it could be a social post, an organic social post, it could be an email. So then the medium is where you put that information in. So is it email, is it organic? And then the campaign name is the most important one, because that's what ties it all together. You'll have a campaign name that you're running over a certain period of time, and then you have multiple places that you're pasting ads and putting activity, and you can tag them all to the same campaign by using a UTM parameter. That's the huge benefit of it. You can tie it all together into one campaign and analyze that data at the end. So this is an example URL. So we've got the Eventbrite URL. That's something we'd share as we would normally. The source that I'll post this onto is Twitter. So I'm going to post it onto Twitter. So I create this link before I go to Twitter. The campaign medium is a post, and then the campaign name I've set is Webinar GA Beginners, because that's what we used back then. I need all those things, and I take them to the Google URL builder, and it will generate the link for me, or I use the spreadsheet, as I mentioned, on Alex Webb's website, and that will present me with this nice long URL, which is not very beautiful. You can get around that by then copying this and putting it into Bitly or another URL shortener to tell something that looks nicer, but the majority of people don't usually see this. You'll see in that address bar, it just looks like a long URL anyway, and I don't think you have to worry about that. And they're not good looking, but they do give you a lot more data about what's happening. The article that Alex creates goes into this in more detail about consistency, and it's really important you get that right when you're using UTM parameters. So, for example, using lowercase for everything will stop things being categorized into different, splitting the metrics out. So for example, Facebook with a lowercase f and Facebook with a capital F will give you 2 different lines of data, whereas you want it to be the same. So try to do things lowercase. That's some best practice. As long as you don't have to follow these exactly, but as long as what you're doing is consistent is the most important thing. So when you're creating these things, be consistent, and then all the data will be consistent itself. As an example is this one. So a campaign name are all the same. The campaign sources are different. So we've got 2 into Twitter. One of them is the MailChimp, so we're sending stuff to MailChimp, and 2 others are Google. So you can have multiple campaign sources under one campaign, and then you can have multiple mediums under a source. So in this example, we've got a post, which is an organic post that we're putting on Twitter, but we've also done a paid one. So CPC means cost per click. So we can see the effectiveness of the stuff we paid for, and we can also see the effectiveness of just the organic stuff we're putting out. And altogether, it gives you a bigger picture of where all this traffic is coming from and to your website, and then all the activity that you're doing, is it contributing to what you want them to do? Hootsuite put this tweet out ages ago saying, every time you post a link without a UTM, you're putting yourself at the mercy of dark social. And what that means is that in Google Analytics, when we look at the attribution reports where people came from, there's one called direct, and that means Google doesn't know. So people have either put the address in the address bar, or they've clicked a link without anything that they can, and they can't understand where it's from. If I shared a link with Mark, and it was just the URL on its own, and he clicked it from WhatsApp, it would just go into direct. If those links had UTMs on the end, I would actually be able to attribute it back to that original place that person found it. So there is ways of doing it to negate the issue of dark social, as they call it. Sounds scary. When you look at the Alex Webb's article about that, you'll see, as I said, the URL builder and the spreadsheet, but there's built-in stuff into platforms already. So if you use Hootsuite, when you're posting the messaging, the actual post, the content of the post, at the bottom there's a little button said add tracking. If you click that, it'll give you a nice pop-up, and you can shorten the link. So you could just put the Eventbrite link in, or whatever link you're using in, and then it will automatically shorten it. But in the tracking part, so the bottom of this, you can see that you can set the UTM parameters, and you can set it to automatically default to all your links you post in the future. So to take that manual step out, you can automate some of that. If you're using MailChimps, if you're using email platforms such as MailChimp, that can do it as well. So you can integrate Google Analytics, and then every single link in your email, so instead of you having to add this stuff to the end, it'll automatically put that all in for you, and you can set the campaign names and have the control over that. So there's abilities in these platforms to take that heavy lifting off for you. The benefits of it, I'm not showing you that yet, is this. So this was what we ran for the Google Analytics for absolute beginners. What that gave us the data to analyze and evaluate was all the different channels that we started to use. So we did some paid stuff with Arts Professional. We sent the email to the different tech champions and their networks, and where they shared it. We sent it to our own email platform as well. The data then, because we tagged all those links up with the UTM parameters, gave us the information into analytics about what was most successful. Arts Professional did really well for us in this respect. The tech champion and networking worked really well as well. And if we were to look at this in the other reports and and pivot the data and all this kind of stuff and get really into it, we could start to see the user journeys. So some of these users might have seen multiple things. They might have seen the Arts Professional stuff. They might have been to just Eventbrite and found the webinar. They might have been on our website. So you get a better picture of the user journey they're going through as a whole through multi-channels, which gives you a much bigger picture of the success of your campaign. Because although we can attribute these things to the last thing they did, they have different touch points. So again, going back to a striker scoring a goal, it's not them. There's other contributing factors. And you need to have that in mind when you're thinking about your campaigns and you want to see what was successful. Because by only looking at this, you might plug all your effort into one of the channels in the future, and then it not be as successful for the next campaign, because you're like, oh, why didn't that work? We put all the money into the one that was working, because of multi-channel marketing. The different touch points that people have with you within an organization, they'll go through different stages and stuff like that. Just going to quickly touch on Facebook Pixel before looking into the evaluation element, because I know we're just running over slightly with time, so apologies for that. Facebook Pixel, we mentioned earlier on, if you've not installed this website, you can do. You might need a developer to help you with that. But that's a way of learning more about the people that are interacting with you as an organization. And then, as I said, you could either serve adverts to them. So they've come to your website, but not done the thing that you wanted them to do. You could start to send extra adverts specifically to those people. So really focused targeting. And you can also do the lookalike audiences. So people that don't know anything about you, but are very similar to the ones that do. It's a great way, it's a great marketing technique to increase your audience share. Evaluation is the thing that you should be doing on an ongoing basis and afterwards. And there are tools that can bring this kind of stuff together. So one example is Google Data Studio. And what you can do with Google Data Studio is connect multiple sources in. So as standard, it's got all the Google products, so YouTube, Search Console, Google Analytics. You can pull all those data in for free. It's brilliant. Get really good visualizations about your campaigns you're running. For other things, such as like Facebook and Twitter and the analytics that are in there, you have to pay for a connector. So depending on the amount that you have to spend on such tools, you might want to explore that, because it does give you it all in the same place, and you can cross-reference all the data and do lots of analysis and stuff like that. But there is a cost to it. All the Google products are free to bring the data in. Anything else, you usually have to pay for a connector. And Supermetrics is one of the people that make those connectors. Here's an example of the stuff that we kind of pull together for some organizations. So dashboards within analytics, so in Google Data Studio. So when people are coming to the site, what are the sources? Gives you a nice top level view of what's happening. The different demographics that are coming in, where they are located and stuff like that. And this is one we're trying with an organization to look at the campaigns specifically. So being able to filter the campaigns to only look at that traffic. So make it automated. So the data is already in there. Anyone in your team could probably can access this just by using the link that you share with them. And then they can filter the time, the date range, and the different campaigns you're running. So there's ways of using systems such as this to bring the data to life a bit more, instead of just the flat data that's available in all the different platforms. So Google Data Studio has a gallery of lots of different reports already there. So I'd recommend having a look through that to see if there's anything that catches your eye and that's useful for you. That's the end of me talking through this. I hope that's been a good introduction to why you should track. So I'm going to go back through those 4 points. So why should I track my marketing campaigns? Prove what is working. Focus your time and effort and resources. Live testing and adjustment, and to inform your future activity. So thank you for that. Let's look at the questions. If there has been any in the chat, I'll answer those now. But if you need support from us, please do get in touch. And if you don't want to stay around for these questions, it's fine. Go to our website, which is digitalculturenetwork.org.uk, or email us at digitalnetwork@artscouncil.org.uk, and we'll try and help. We're really keen to improve the digital skills with all these kind of things, and we hope that what you've learned in this is going to trigger some nice thoughts about the kind of things that you could potentially do. We have next month we have 4 other webinars, so around email marketing, search engine marketing, and e-commerce as well. So do sign up to those webinars we have there, because they're going to be great. I'm going to be joining those and having a watch, because I'm really interested in the stuff I learned from the other tech champions as well. You will be sent an evaluation form, because we're talking about evaluating campaigns and stuff. In that, tell us whether this was useful or not to you, because that's the only way we learn about whether the stuff we're talking to you about is useful. And because with digital online training, it's very difficult to gauge response. So please fill that out. And if you have any more questions, there's a nice open text field for you to fill out the stuff that you might still have questions about after this session that we're not going to cover right now. But I can either answer in the article that I create, or it's going to inform the future webinars and resources we create, because we want to help you. So you need to tell us what you want. Right, I'm going to open up the article now, and the the set of questions that Mark has carefully curated for me. Okay, so yeah. So a lot of the things, I'm just looking through some of these. Yeah. Okay, so a lot of these questions we're gonna. someone got urchin tracking module. Perfect, thank you. Okay, so the questions that you're asking for me to post a link and stuff like that. So we will send you a link to the article with the recording of this webinar, the spreadsheet, and I'll answer the other questions that we have here, because the questions that we have at the moment do cover that kind of broad stuff that we might be able to cover in the other stuff. But as you say, some of them are covering things like, is there an easy way to see all social analytics in one place? There are platforms out there. I will link to a few. Some are paid, some are not. So I'll look through this and work through those. But I don't think there's anything that's immediately going to answer all the questions that you need. So thank you for your time. I've really enjoyed it. It's been great to speak about this stuff. And as I said, I hope this has sparked interest in tracking and the benefits of it, focusing your time and effort, and to prove what you're doing is really successful. Bye-bye.